Hello. Oh, come on. Hello. Okay, today we're gonna be watching Mr. Hippo's speeches. Yeah, it's happening. It's happening. Mr. Hippo's story voice. Oh, should I listen to it? Let's do this one. It's still the same one.
Terrible, terrible.
Okay.
My friend, you have met a terrible, terrible demise. But, I don't feel too bad about it. After all, if it weren't from me, it would have just been from someone else, you know? I guess what I'm trying to say is life goes on.
That's very deep.
Well, for everyone else, life goes on,
and
not,
on and
not for
on
you.
and on and on
You're dead.
and on and
That's
on
neither
and on.
here nor there. It reminds me of one summer day in the park. I was having just a delightful picnic with my good friend Orville. And I said to him, Orville, I have a story. And he said to me, what's the significance of the story? And I said to him, Orville, not every story has to have significance, you know? Sometimes a story is just a story. If you try to read into every little thing and find meaning in everything anyone says, you'll just drive yourself crazy. Had a friend do it once. Wasn't pretty. We talked about it for years. And not only that, but you'll likely end up believing something you shouldn't believe and thinking something you shouldn't think or assuming something you shouldn't assume, you know? Sometimes, I said, a story is just a story. So just be quiet for 1 second of your life and eat your sandwich, okay? Of course, it was only then I realized I made sandwiches, and poor Orville was having such difficulty eating it. Elephants have those clumsy hands, you know. Actually, I suppose that's the problem. They don't have hands at all, do they? They're they're all feet. And I couldn't imagine someone asking me to eat a sandwich with my feet. Now, if I recall correctly, there was a bakery nearby. I said to him, Orville, let me go get you some rye bread. Now, I'm unsure if elephants enjoy rye bread, but I assure you that Orville does. Now, this was on a Tuesday, which was good because rye bread was always fresh on Tuesday. They made sourdough bread on Monday and threw it out Wednesday, or rather, they sold it at a discount for people wanting to feed the ducks, and then probably at the end of the day, finally, they threw it all out. I don't recall. I do remember a man who would bring his son to the bakery every Wednesday and then go feed the ducks. He would buy all of the sourdough bread. Of course, you're not supposed to feed the ducks sourdough bread at all. It swells up in their stomach and then they all die. At least that's what I've heard. I never saw any ducks die myself, but I did notice a substantial decrease in the duck population over the course of a few years. I just never thought to stop the man and tell him that he was killing the ducks by feeding them sourdough bread.
Holy crap.
And if you want my opinion on the matter, and I told Orville this as well, if you want to feed ducks, or birds, or any kind for that matter, it's best to buy seed. I mean, when you think about it, breads of any sort don't occur in nature. They don't grow on trees or spring up from the bushes. I don't think birds know what to do with bread. What was I saying? Oh, yes. So I bought Orville some rye bread. What a fine day it was.
That's his first speech. Aw, damn!
It seems that you have met a horrible demise, my friend. But these things happen in life. Life goes on. Not for you, obviously. You're dead. But it reminds me of a time I was having a
Oh,
conversation with my friend Orville.
imagine
We
just
were
listening to
where
this
were
every time you
we?
die.
We were by the river. We were sitting by the river and watching the fish leap over the falls. And I said to Orville, sometimes I feel like a fish leaping over and over again, always trying to get somewhere, though I don't know where, only to find myself in the jaws of a beast. He, of course, looked at me, surprised. Have you been in the jaws of a beast, friend? To which I said, no, of course not, Orville. I said, no, 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 no. I simply meant that life can seem like a relentless endeavor to overcome
He's
meaningless
expressing it, not
obstacles, only to
literally
meet an
saying it
equally meaningless
figuratively.
fate, regardless of your efforts, regardless of
Literally,
the
I don't know
obstacles
how to
you've
pronounce that.
passed. And Orville, he stood and proceeded to drape me with a picnic cloth, to which I asked him, I said, friend, what are you doing? He looked at me very concerned, really. I feel like you've gotten too much sun. Indeed, indeed I had. He proceeded to pour me a glass of just ice
Oh,
cold lemonade.
lemonade.
Ooh, you ever mix it with iced tea? You do like a little half lemonade, half. Ooh, it's so. You should try it some. Well, you can't because you're dead. But anyways, so you may be asking yourself, how did I go from sitting by the falls and drinking lemonade to being wedged in the air duct? Not only with Orville, but with an entire assortment of fruity-colored friends. Well, there's really no good answer to that, but perhaps I met a demise of my own at some point, and this is my afterlife or my dream, whatever it might mean. I honestly don't know. Or maybe it doesn't mean anything at all. Maybe it doesn't mean anything at all.
Who made these quotes? Whoa, it was.
Well, it seems that your journey has ended. Very sorry about that. It was always going to end this way, of course. If it weren't by me, it would have just been by some other, terrible thing. Just you could not imagine how terrible it would be. Just I get scared thinking about it. Glad it's not me. It reminds me of a time I was speaking to my good friend Orville.
Orville.
We were sitting on a park bench watching the pigeons. I was on the left, he was on the. Oh, wait, was I on the right or left? Anyways, it
Yeah,
doesn't
my
matter. We were
God,
sitting on
the
there
animation,
watching
they
the
cooked
pigeons.
with it.
And I said to Orville, friend, those birds are frozen. And he kind of looked at me like I'd lost my mind. But I reminded him that it was winter, and often birds will sit in a tree until they freeze. And then they sort of fall to the ground until the sun warms up and they can, move around again. So I said to Orville, you might as well save those breadcrumbs until the birds thaw, because they can't very well enjoy them in the condition they're in. To which he asked what I meant, and asking
Oh
what
my
condition the
God.
crumbs should be in before he threw them to the birds, assuming that I meant the birds couldn't enjoy the breadcrumbs in the
No,
condition that the crumbs were in,
no,
when
the
in
condition
fact
they,
I had meant
the
the
birds
birds
are
could
in.
not enjoy them in the condition that the birds were in, considering that the birds were frozen. So he took a moment and then threw his last handful onto the ground. I said to him, Orville, why did you throw the breadcrumbs to the birds when I just told you they're frozen? To which he responded, the breadcrumbs are not frozen. Again, misunderstanding my words. I
It's
didn't
the
mean to say that the breadcrumbs were frozen when I said I told you they're frozen. I'd been referring to the birds. In hindsight, what I should have said was, and this would make perfect sense, why did you throw the breadcrumbs to the birds when the birds are frozen? He misunderstood upon my correction, stating that he didn't know what else to do with the breadcrumbs, and that perhaps, when the birds thawed, they'd still be able to eat the crumbs. So I said to Orville, and this is what I said to him, I said, Orville, the birds may be dead.
holy crap. How is
It
this?
seems that you have met your end. What a pity. I'd I don't feel too bad about it, though.
This is the final
After all,
speech.
if it weren't me, it would have just been one of the others, I guess. I'm honestly just glad to be out of those air ducts. You know, it's not easy for a hippopotamus to fit up there, and not easy to get down either, and not as young as I used to be, as
How
you can
young
see.
are you?
I used to be able to do all this.
How old is Mr. Hippo? I think I got a lot of Canva.